Well, this is a question I've been meaning to get to. Assalamu alaikum, by the way. I think, as far as I can remember, depends on how far you want to go. But earliest word I can remember that I learned in Arabic was when I was in grade 5. And we had this grade school program on the weekends for free. I took Spanish at that time, but there actually was an Arabic course. And I remember hearing the word for good morning, which is Sabah al-Khair, right? Sabah al-Khair. So that was my first exposure to any learning of Arabic. And I lived a pretty sheltered life, I would say, all throughout, but clearly Allah had other plans. And when I think back, and this is a very wise thing to do periodically, is to just imagine your past as a sequence of steps to the present to help you understand what the future might look like, at least the trajectory of it. But throughout, I always had some kind of a duty to kind of like clear the name of Muslims in the world. And so my exposure to Arabic in the Middle East and Islam, that has always been with me before I even learned what the Qur'an is. I had this innate sense that there is a huge oppression against Muslims since 9/11. I was about 9 years old when that happened. Fast forward to in my college days, I met my wife. My first encounter into the Quran and Arabic full throttle. And I don't know why, but it didn't really take me long to just engage with that endeavor. So like I told you, had zero exposure to the Arabic abjad, let alone the language or the vocabulary or anything else. Sounds kind of hard to believe, right? That was where I was over 10 years ago. I was not even Muslim at that point, but I do recall going to the library and just going on Qur'ana alone websites and compiling my favorite ayahs, the translations of them. So, my first advice to you is that learning Arabic is part of your path. At least if that's something you're passionate about. Like, for me, I definitely am passionate about languages. Before Arabic, or actually, while learning Arabic, I dabbled with a lot of languages, actually. You know, the common ones, German, Italian, Spanish. I was a real sucker for Duolingo because it was like the first time there was a free service that made it really fun. And yeah, maybe you don't retain as much, but you start to familiarize yourself and feel like, you know, it's not alien, right? Our languages are kind of a way that we have become divided in a sense. But I think it's kind of converging back to remembering where we come from. So, I recall there university, I downloaded this app, very, just like a very basic app, and it just was flashcards with Arabic. And I tell you, the next piece of advice is don't worry about the pronunciation in the beginning. And I only tend to elaborate on the whole journey, just in case there's people that were like me and had just absolutely no head start in Arabic at all. So I started to memorize the letters. There's 28 of them, and fortunately most of them look like each other. So eventually you see them enough times, okay, and you remember what they are. The last few are actually in the same order, like, Kaf, Lam, Mim, Nun, KLMN, right, in English. So it took me some time I didn't even start to read the Quran until I just became really much accustomed to these letters, and then you just kind of put them together, It's just a very organic process. Arabic is meant to be a completely logical communication system. So I start to learn some vocabulary. And luckily, the more I got to know my wife and her family, I start to get more exposed to just common everyday words, which I'll tell you was very daunting in the beginning, simply because you basically don't know anything, you don't understand anything, you feel out of the loop. And that's normal. That's with anything, really, that's new. So my other word of advice to you is don't be afraid of being or feeling isolated. You have to understand that Arab speakers today actually also need to learn Arabic, because the way they use it, all right, and this is not their fault, it's just we all come from modern cultures and societies, is actually something that the Qur'an corrects as well. So I downloaded some apps at that time, right? You're talking in like basically, 7 years ago or so. So at this point, I was already, formally took my Shahada. And that was a turning point for me. I even told the Imam at that point that, listen, I know what this Abrahamic belief is like, because I used to have it. And I learned better that really the solution is not to capitulate. It's actually to be sincere, right? Sincerity, ikhlas, loyalty, okay? And one of the things I said in the mosque that day was, I want to learn the Quran. I want to learn the scripture, because I believe in all those, what I saw as the scriptures at that point, they're just, whatever they are in the Quran, if they're books or something entirely, it's definitely something that abiding by the Quran already grants you access to that already. And yeah, he mentioned in there, Musa and Isa and Muhammad, of course. So now I am starting out Islam. I still very new, still very fresh, and Arabic is still very much poorly understood by me at this point. I think most converts or reverts in the West have this same situation. You're just feeling like, what do I do now? I have to pray, I have to fast, I have to say all these sayings and du'as. Well, funny enough, I actually had to learn this by transliteration. So the powerful thing is, whatever language you speak, English, Dutch, whatever, you can use that alphabet to write what would be pronounced in Arabic. So, for example, like I want to memorize something. And by the way, I don't advise that you do this, but I'm just saying, like, there is a way to get comfortable with reading Arabic before you can read the characters, right? And that's where transliteration comes handy, because there's not a lot of... I feel like transliteration is kind of like the Wild West, in that there's no consistent way to represent Arabic letters and sounds in, like Latin characters or otherwise. So really, that's up to your discretion, as long as you can read it back. This helps you to engage with the Qur'an without being able to read the Arabic. And funny enough, that brings to mind exactly what I did, because I was very much into this memorization contest. So I'd be on the bus, and I just use my time. I would just, I know exactly how long I'll be there, so I just open up one of those surahs at the back of the Quran. I put in this app, which is called, oh, by the way, apps for Arabic, like modern Arabic. The ones I used for Duolingo, I wouldn't recommend that now. For vocabulary, I'd recommend Memrise, Memrase. And Close Master was another one, Clozemaster. So those ones are just kind of like just flashcards and whatever. It's like the traditional method of learning a language. I also bought a dictionary or two, just so I have like a quick reference. There's one you can get with like a pocketbook or whatever. In the end, I really don't think those help me much. I really do think because now with AI and all kinds of other things, you have a lot more at your fingertips than when I was starting to learn Arabic. So I would try all kinds of possibilities. But trust me, I think like the biggest advantage I've had is being exposed to native speakers speaking Arabic. That might not be a possibility for everybody, okay? And yeah, you're going to learn a colloquial version of it. It's not going to be what the Quran says, but you're going to draw a connection in your head to the words you hear with the Quran. And this actually helps to establish the meanings of the Quran for your own sake, given that these are things that are used every day. And yeah, the Quran does actually use these words, which really no translation can dispute, because, they're in living memory, right? So yeah, definitely, if you can find a way to, hear Arabic around you, or at least participate in dialogue, this really breaks you out of that shell, right, of isolation, because you're taking the leap of faith to want to make mistakes and not care, right? There's actually a myth out there that children learn languages faster than adults because while they're younger, they have more neuroplasticity. It's actually not true at all. It's just the habits of children are more innocent, tend to be. They have no frustration. They make all kinds of mistakes. And that actually adds to their experience. So they become more precise over time because, like I said, they don't have any shame in, feeling like low confidence or anything. They're very confident children when they learn a language, even though they get it wrong many times. So that's another piece of advice is don't be afraid to make mistakes. And you will start to... appreciate the progress because, there's a lot to learn in Arabic, surprisingly. It's very intricate. Now, that brings me to around the time where I really started to get frustrated with the pronunciation of Arabic letters. What's very interesting is the namaz ritual kind of helped me eventually to pronounce the Arabic correctly. I don't know if you know this, but Surah Al-Fatiha, is probably the most recited surah by far, has every single sound in the Arabic alphabet. So if you read Surah Al-Fatiha and really maybe it's repetition, maybe it's, trying to pinpoint where the sound is articulated in your throat and your mouth, your lips, right? Eventually, it will come out. I experienced this, when I was doing the namaz thing. And just all of a sudden, the ones that were the biggest difficulty for me, because this is actually only in Arabic, I think, in some Semitic languages, is the ayn, ha, to some extent qaf. The other ones, not so much. Other ones are just more practice, but those ones especially because they're at the back of your throat. And actually, funny enough, both the letter ha and ayn, they're produced in the exact same part of your throat. Just one is actually vocalized. I think they call it a pharyngeal vocalization. And the other one is a breathy one. So one thing that helped me with the ayn in particular, so that, I could say alamin, was this practice of imagining you're Arnold Schwarzenegger when you do an impression, you get down on the ground, get to the chopper, And it's funny because now that I think about it, it's literally the ayn sound in his Austrian accent, So, that kind of made it fun to, instead of frustrating. What I would do actually is, for qaf, I would kind of do it without saying the letter, just this kind of sound, because you see, Arabic can be lost because it's a lisan. It revolves around the muscle called your tongue. And these are very precise access points that no other language replicates entirely. So, don't be too dismayed if it seems daunting. Apparently, research shows that Arabic children, unlike other languages, Arabic children, they start to actually learn Arabic kind of in a colloquial way by the time they're 11. All right? That's pretty late compared to most other languages. And I think it's because these are very precise muscles that have to develop. All right? So they're just not ready, So once I got the sounds underway, I really, I would see the news all the time, in Arabic and stuff. And I was like, man, there's just no way I'm going to read that fast to figure out what those letters mean. Okay. And that's your next hurdle. So your next hurdle is readability. Okay. Transliteration is good for a while. Okay. But eventually you kind of want to grow out of that, take off the training wheels and say, you know what? I know the letters. I can pronounce them. Okay. And now maybe I have some more vocabulary, So now I just want to straight read it and see what I comprehend from that. Okay. So you're not going to start with the Qur'an because there's another step to that that actually I had to go through, not realizing that, the Qur'an Qur'an is special because it's formal Fusha Arabic. Okay? So what you should do is just like take off the diacritics for a bit, right? And just see if you can, enunciate the sounds, articulate the sounds in any word, right? Because there's combinations of how to read it based on the diacritics. That's why the Qur'an needs diacritics. But it doesn't need it, it comes with it, And yeah, I think what you'll notice is that hurdle is really to become comfortable with how the letters start to look when they are in different positions in a word, right? Like meme has different positions, qaf, alif, every single one, right? So yeah, that is a bit challenging, but you're just working your way up, going to the next level until you feel comfortable. Really the final thing for me, after I'm comfortable, I can read the letters, I can pronounce the sounds, I can sort of know what some letters mean. I think the next step, truly, you could along the way also start to get familiar with writing the letters, because that does something to your mind where you just think in Arabic. Like you think about the word shams, If you didn't write it enough, you probably might forget what it looks like. But I'm telling you, like, the more you immerse yourself with it, the better. Because, like I said from the beginning, this is kind of, I can't really say it's a duty for everyone, because people range in their capabilities. What I can say is that it definitely gives you autonomy. It definitely gives you so much empowerment, if you're willing to. So that's the thing, is the perfect recitation stage. I think I got to that when I learned of a online kind of Sunday school, right? By an imam in Canada that was through the mosque, okay? And all he was teaching, essentially, he went through the steps I already knew, which are the letters, okay? And then he went through all the way to the Fusha. He was using, I think, the Medina books. So that might be very helpful, actually. It goes step by step in the same way. And really the tashkil markings, okay? The diacritical marks, that stuff, that is like the cherry on top, right? And literally, it's indispensable if you want to read the Qur'an gracefully, Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. I'm just going through my journey. I don't know if I have a formula, okay? But this really changed the game for me, because to see the letters with the diacritics means you don't have to have a memory like a typical Arab native speaker would, to know like what the word is in the sentence, So the thing is, without the diacritics, right? Most people like write without it, because there's only so many words that will be used all the time in discourse, right? And that's why in the news and, formal Arabic, like modern standard Arabic, they speak Fusha. They don't speak, colloquial. But anyway, so that's the thing, is you're not getting to the point where, like you said, you can read everything, you can recite it, and really the last stage is a comprehension bit, okay? Now, if you watch my videos, you kind of have seen my journey into that as well, at least partially, because One thing that started to become clear since I've been, using websites like Quran corpus and whatnot, is that one word doesn't mean the same thing, okay, throughout the Quran. And that invites so much subjectivity that you could basically make the Quran mean whatever you want at that point. So anyways, one thing that I would do to confirm to myself, what does this word mean? What are all the definitions of the word? I think there's a pinned message on this chat, some websites that are helpful. For me, like over 2 years now, definitely found the etymology to be the game changer for starting to piece together what words in the Quran are. So every word in the Quran comes from a root. And what you'll notice is that, generally speaking, okay, you're going to find a whole host of definitions in the dictionaries, okay, to mean basically either the same word or used across the words made from the root, okay? But the root is kind of where you start, right? So a lot of websites you've probably seen before, they list the root for you, Quran morphology or Quran corpus. So that's powerful because if your intention is to study the Quran, to learn Arabic, okay, or comprehend it after you start to learn Arabic, then you should have all of the instances of a root, generally speaking, for you to compare, okay? So one misnomer that people often presume about what I do is that they just imagine, it's just like picking and choosing dictionary definitions. There's nothing to that. It's just all, subjective. No, obviously, like Allah knows best about the best possible word in the English language or otherwise for any given Arabic word. That's not the goal. It's just a, attempt to make sense of what is right in front of us, So Wiktionary is really powerful because if you have an Arabic keyboard, actually that is something that might help you become very literate in Arabic, is if you have an Arabic keyboard that you type in, like on your phone or on your laptop or whatever. Because, sometimes you have to pull out that word to search it, right? So basically every day I'm typing on an Arabic keyboard at some point, and it jumps me to the, root. I can kind of look at any similar words, anything like that. Okay, we're still maybe halfway there about comprehension, right? This is just using the dictionary, essentially. So like on Living Arabic Project, they give you different colloquial versions of Arabic. Obviously, the formal Arabic is going to actually be the most helpful. But sometimes, out of curiosity, you want to compare with what's out there. You never know. Maybe one of those dialects may have some more information about a particular word or root, right? This is kind of the art of following your curiosity. So when you look back after you've read dozens of entries on one root, right? You're like, well, I kind of get the general idea of what this is about. So you always get that sense. You have to kind of ignore the outliers because sometimes those are there because Arabic is a poetic language today, all right? And obviously in the modern world, they're going to repurpose words for whatever. So just look at things broadly. Look at the big picture for any given root. So you get a sense of what it's about and hence all the words that form from it. The next step is to learn the grammar. And this is probably the most frustrating part for any person interested in learning Arabic about the Quran, simply because, I've tried to trailblaze through that, so you don't have to do the, contemplating and have all these doubts about, what is going on here with Arabic grammar. So, number one, take it step by step. Just, pick one topic within this discipline called Arabic grammar, okay? And just read about it. Now in the days of, ChatGPT, you're going to get a lot of efficiency in that. But, before I even use ChatGPT for just kind of random queries, I would just find websites. I forget what they're called, but basically they have all the grammar listed as topics. So you can make it very fun. Like you can just kind of pick one of them, just go down the list. And if you encounter that in the Quran, it's a bonus, because that means that you have a direct example that now it starts to make sense what's going on. Okay. Number one, don't by any means try to equivocate the translation in any given ayah with what's there in Arabic. Okay. This will short circuit usually what you're trying to do. Okay. Just ignore the brackets, okay? Ignore the English, whatever. Just ignore it for now, okay? And I say this to you very confidently. Once you start to get into grammar and understanding that, you will be very shocked, okay? You will be very shocked that they didn't even bother to apply any of that to the Quran translation, okay? I've actually read in some articles that Arabic grammar makes no sense to conventional Arabic rules, okay, by modern Arabic standards. And that should ring some alarm bells, because clearly we don't know more than Allah, okay? But, learn what active, passive participles are. Actually, one of the best ways to do that is go to Quran Corpus, pick an ayah, okay? And then click on the actual ayahs so that you see the list of words, right, individually. And they'll basically be labeled with what they are. So like verbs. Verbs is a pretty complex understanding of Arabic. So like, for example, yuqimuna, okay? Yuqimuna. That one word has a lot of information in it. Okay, this is how compressed Arabic is. So, first off, you want to be able to learn how to conjugate in real time, eventually, any given verb in Arabic. And the reason I probably would start with verbs is because every root is actually a verb in past tense, third person, indicative, active, singular. I don't bother to put them in order or anything. I just make sure I check off all the boxes of what that is. So, yuqimuna. Okay, that's the example. So when you look at that word, you're going to know right away. Okay, and it'll be labeled as this usually. All right, you're going to know right away that is present tense. Okay, I think what they call it is indicative in Quran Corpus and Arabic and whatever. Don't get too hung up about the terminology. Just be able to recognize this and, tell yourself, hey, I can do this, I can, like a detective, like you know what to look for, basically, right? So it's present tense. It's also a third person plural. So basically, within that word is a invisible they, okay? And it's a masculine, okay? It's not a feminine third person plural. This is all with one word, all right? This is how beautiful Arabic is and efficient it is. Eventually you'll recognize that comes from the root that has qawm and qiyama and everything, right? So you have different verbs. They're called different types of verbs, verb forms, okay? And that one is from a very standard, very common verb form type called type 4, which is the verb aqama. Okay? So you'll be able to recognize, eventually it'll be, sometimes you have to double check because, you could be a bit rusty, So, you're going to know it's active as well. So that means the subject implicit in the verb is performing the action. Sorry, I didn't want to make this a lecture. But this is where, if you can already read Arabic, if you can already, know how to go and recite things, and you have some kind of vocabulary going, okay, this is going to be where the bulk of your time is, right? And this is really just like extra credit, because most people, they don't bother. They just totally satisfied, just kind of going through the motions, and that's fine. That's fine. All power to them, I'm not like that. So this is actually what will elevate your reading of something, because what you're going to notice is that the translation basically is just a band-aid on what the Arabic is loudly shouting at you in any ayah. Okay? Another thing you're going to have to notice is that because the Qur'an could have been revealed in literally any other way, right? You have to appreciate that this is the only way it is. Always will be, always has been. Okay? Don't get me started on the variant readings. Just don't worry about that. You will actually, as you start to understand grammar, okay, like for example, nouns, verbs, adjectives, right? It's going to be clear to you that their other readings are nonsense, okay? Now, here's where you get to the final phase, okay? The final phase is where, you can kind of understand my, my patience basically with translating, because there's a lot of things in the Qur'an that completely fly in the face of logic, apparently, on the surface, right? And that's because you are supposed to have this revelation be completely just elegant and efficiently organized for you, right? Like you're talking about comprehension, right? So any particular surah, and this very detail actually started my journey over 2 years ago into this entire realm of, Quran investigation. Obviously from the Quran itself, because at that point, when this thing becomes apparent, you quickly realize that everything else is just like a cop-out, like how could we even pretend to understand the Quran outside of its context when we don't know the context? We don't know what actually it is telling us. And any particular surah, you're going to notice, uses and repeats the same words within that surah in very different stories, very different situations, in seemingly unconnected ways. But I'll tell you right now, and you could prove this for yourself, that is not the case. Okay? It is within the surah, because the surah is like a wall, and it encloses, it's like its own discipline. And all the ayahs are the proofs, right? For whatever it's talking about. The title itself, anytime you see it underneath an ayah, you should try to reflect and ponder and consider why that title has the information in that ayah associated with that title, okay? This is all stuff that really you can't teach. And the reason why is you just have to, you just have to believe, like you have to believe in this book, Otherwise, what's the point? Like, you could be studying anything else, yeah, I think this is part of, I've if you have any words that you're stuck on, okay, just let me know. I've made a pretty long bank, and that's because, fortunately, 80% of the Qur'an is like, I can't remember the exact quantity, but it's like a few hundred words, okay? That's quite astonishing. That means that, basically you can understand most of the Qur'an with just understanding a few words, relatively speaking, Prepositions and another thing. So what you haven't seen behind the scenes is my hours and hours and hours and sleepless nights of just getting the ball rolling, okay? Like, if we were to understand this as a consistent revelation, then clearly each word has its own place and deserves its own unique translation, own unique definition, okay? The amazing returns that comes from that is just nothing short of amazing. Because when you realize what you're reading there, okay, you might have a eureka moment or two, Okay, so yeah, the grammar is kind of like the final rabbit hole, honestly. And it provokes all kinds of other, neural pathways you didn't know you had. So you'll start to see more connections and more connections and more connections. Don't expect to figure everything out, because no one has. Probably no one will. Definitely no one will. That's something reserved for eternity, I believe. However, at the same time, keep that ceiling of what you understand to be possible as high as possible, unless the Qur'an specifies otherwise, right? For example, there's only one all-powerful creator of the universe and time and space. Beyond that, that's like a given, Many people claim to believe that, but in practice they don't. But anyway, you're gonna be interacting with the Quran more regularly, and in a way that most Muslims could only imagine, because they take it for granted. Okay, you're gonna be on these websites a lot, because you see, once you start to notice a few things here, there, if you're like me, that curiosity will never die out. It'll only grow stronger. You'll only get more and more emboldened by what you clearly can prove to be a conspiracy. Okay? So, I don't know how to draw this out longer, but essentially, my word of advice to you is you just have to be confident with whatever comes your way. It's kind of like you'll hit a fork in the road and you'll be like, what am I supposed to do with this? This is like a dead end. It's not. It's just something I've encountered as well, where you don't know what to do. There's no way the Quran could be wrong. Okay? So you try to find a very reasonable solution, given that the Quran does not vary, does not contradict whatsoever. No one has changed Allah's words whatsoever. So this is kind of where your your understanding of Allah and your perception of Allah makes all the difference. Okay? And if there are any examples of that you come across, I must have seen quite a bit of them. So I have a catalog of things to expect, and you'll grow that eventually too, inshallah. I hope Allah makes it easier for you to interact with the Qur'an and everybody listening. Because, it's, for me, I don't really know what else could be more important. That's just my opinion, because I would be bored if I didn't see the Qur'an in my life, and if I didn't, see my life in the Qur'an, if I didn't just usually kind of, engage and immerse myself in this text. So, I think that is more than enough, hopefully. I mentioned how I started it, kind of a bit of a formula, honestly. It's not really a formula, it's supposed to be very intuitive. But something I will mention, just before I end this, is that you really do have to, along the way, enjoy, relax, don't feel pressured, take your time, go at your own pace, okay? Don't compete with anybody. Just work things out for yourself. Imagine that, it's not a job. It's just a personal fulfillment, truly. We're human beings. We like to see progress, we like to see improvement. We love to experience, like things that take our breath away. It's not, it's not corny or anything. Like, you're supposed to feel inspired by the Qur'an. The Qur'an is supposed to elevate your consciousness. Just enjoy the journey. Enjoy it, approach it like a child. Like, you don't know what this is. Assume you don't know anything about it. You just maybe know some very basic things, and that's it. Look at it very meticulously. Look at it kind of like, this is you trying to really show Allah that you care. You want to make sense of His words. That's like, you're gonna see a lot of what you see in the Qur'an in your life. That's a given. Essentially, and I don't say this lightly, the purpose of this life, given that you're an individual, humans come into this world as individuals, they leave as individuals. Okay, they have their own perspective. Purpose of this life, if anything, is really like what they call consciousness of God. Okay. In this case, the Creator has His own name. It's Allah. So I like to say Allah, And what that entails and how that benefits you is you, at the risk of sounding cliche, attain enlightenment. Okay? It has nothing to do with Buddhist monasteries or a bunch of monks, or it's very profound, to say the least. The more that you grasp what the Qur'an is about, you have to feel connected to Allah. You have to feel more and more close with His presence. You have to. I can't describe the difference in the energy when I was a Sunni to now. I can't describe. It's not comparable at all. Okay, everybody knows they are close to Allah. He created them. It doesn't matter what they call it, it doesn't matter what they believe about this world. The Quran gives you the objective reality, okay? So, obviously, you believe in it. But there's a big difference to doing something and having a general notion than truly appreciating and understanding what's going on. When you can see the mechanism, when you can conceptualize, visualize what's on the page in plain Arabic text, distinctly manifested for us, it makes all of the difference. I keep saying one final more thing, but I just keep coming to mind more things, you know. Ayah. Do not underestimate this word. It's used quite a bit. Ayah singular, ayat plural. Everything you're reading in the Quran, other than the titles of the surahs, other than the bismillahs, except for one or two, are called ayahs. I can think of no better word, and that's why I'll use it in my translation, for this word in Arabic than miracle. A miracle. What is a miracle? A miracle is something you cannot try to fake, you cannot try to empirically measure, show, you cannot explain its existence other than it's Allah. Allah made this. Allah did this. Allah showed us this. Okay? Miracle. It's a miracle. You're a miracle. Your life is a miracle. The fact we're talking is a miracle. It's something like, it's the foundation of this reality. Without miracles, everything would collapse. But yet we have them. We have them on the small scale. We have them on the large scale. If you don't get the sense that an ayah is telling you a miracle, I would suggest that you read it again until you do. Sounds very esoteric, doesn't it? But you want to be enlightened, okay? There's a reason why that word has light in it. Why knowledge and light are basically the same thing. You go into a dark room, you turn a light on, you have more awareness, more knowledge of what's going on. The two are not the same, clearly, because you can't remove light, right? Once you have it, you can't remove it. You can't unring a bell, and you can't go back to ignorance once you're awakened to something. And it's not, that's just the beginning, okay? The question is, how far will you go once you know that something about the world is wrong and something about this is true? How far will you go? Will you go beyond? As far as the horizon, beyond? Think about it for a second. You have unique ambitions and desires and motivations since you're a child. You see the world differently. Because you're not here without a purpose. This life is not meaningless, actually, despite what you might hear. I think every bit of it is a meaningful thing. We just don't speak the language of what surrounds us. Similarly, the Quran echoes that sentiment. Good is indescribably incomparable to evil. Some of this is going to really take you for a roller coaster, okay? You'll find all kinds of challenges in your life, with or without the Quran, okay? But once you go down this path, okay? I'm not trying to be ominous at all. I'm telling you to appreciate how profound this journey is. When I look back on all the sequence of events that led to me talking to you right now. You have to embrace what you came into this world as. You have to embrace that. You know nothing. You don't know anything. You can't see, you can't hear, you can't understand. You don't know who you are. You don't know what you are. You know where you're going. You know what you live on. These questions persist throughout adulthood and unfortunately up until after a person dies. We both know that death is not the end. And actually, thanks to the Qur'an and its truly compassionate author, your immortality and eternity is a given. It's a given. So you don't have to worry about death. It's just something you have to go through. It's like a door, Please don't take these words out of context. I'm just telling you to reassure you that it's supposed to be good news. It's good news because if you're a believer, you have no other desire to look forward to in the end other than what Jannah provides. Okay, imagine the innocence of a child. What does it mean to be innocent? To be pure, to be, aligned with the good, the virtuous, the beautiful things, the things that Allah surrounds us in. Whatever you see in nature, whatever you see in just these truly amazing moments, everyone has access to, everyone has experienced. That's calculated. That is part of wielding this knowledge. Is you have to just I'm running out of words to articulate this, but you have to be honest with everything being in Allah's hands, and the gratitude will be your key to unlocking that. Gratitude for absolutely everything, absolutely everything. Over time, you will have no doubt, if it isn't obvious already, where everyone stands, okay, at the end of the day. No doubt. So just cultivate in yourself the impression you get from the Qur'an. Do you see the Qur'an as a violent book? A book about, basically subjugation of women and destruction and threats from a tyrannical God that appears as though he has very little control over what he created? Or do you see a truly transcendent, all-knowing, virtuous, and just unimaginably present creator that has already written the best ending for you, has already made you the hero of your own story, and has already accounted for all of your needs, everything you could ever want? He's infinite. He can give you infinite whatever. And you don't have to wonder. It's already done. So take this time to enjoy and develop your resolve. Because I'm telling you, I think I mentioned it before. The world will not take lightly what you hold to be true if you truly believe in this book. Okay? Doesn't matter if they're your parents, doesn't matter if they're your spouse, doesn't matter if they're your children, your peers, your nation, whatever. It will really test the limits of your strength, your spiritual power. So I think one of the best antidotes is to learn about it. Increase your knowledge, truly, truly. And you'll start to respect exactly why things are the way they are. You'll never question, why is hell eternal? That seems very unfair. You'll never question, like, why do most people go there? And no, you won't. You won't. You will understand in such a stoic fashion why the truth is the truth. It doesn't mean you look at the world as gloomy and doomy. It's a never-ending path, my friend. It really is. And, Allah blessed who He does, who He blesses. He loves, those who have no capitulation to the lies, unapologetically, enthusiastically, irrefutably, resolute against the world. That's what this book can give to you. And it's not for everyone. So consider yourself one of the successful. Time will show the truth. Have a good night.